Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversation. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
5 years ago, the Power of We Symposium was created to provide a platform for kids from all sectors where they could have a safe and comfortable environment in which to share both their joys and concerns. The Power of We Symposium is proud to have served over 250 kids throughout Romania when we took our mission global back in May of 2023. Now, 2 teams of amazing volunteers from both the U.S. and Romania embarked on an 8-day Legacy of Hope tour, bringing encouragement and hope to not only the kids of Romania, but also the adults who support them, and also to over 100 kids here in the U.S. who contributed handwritten letters of hope to our Romania mission of 2023. Now, this year, we are proud to provide this opportunity yet again in October, and we are super excited to up our game. New venue, 750 kids this time, and we want to see you there. We're looking forward to meeting you in person at this year's event, which promises, as always, incredible speakers, amazing content, and of course, some of the greatest kids on the planet. So, mark your calendars for October 24th, and we'll see you here in Chicagoland for the Power of We Symposium 2024. This year's theme is Always Together, Never Alone. Tickets are available now on Eventbrite or at powerofwesymposium.com. Hello, hello, hello. I have a question for you. Have you ever felt completely lost? You know, seeking purposeful direction that could and should propel your mission within your divine journey to that next level, but still it hasn't happened. Well, my name is Lauren Michaels Harris, and I'm the founder of P3, the Journey Series. People come to me because they're wounded. Many are scared, and even there are those who are bruised simply because they feel that they are increasingly, for whatever reason, losing their ability to dream. Now, this P3 program is not for a person who's just looking to start a business, no, but rather for those of you out there who have been on your journey and you've been navigating within your divine purpose, but you still desire to elevate to that level that you have not reached yet. If this is appealing, if this describes you, then I want to have a chat with you. I want to hear your story. So use the link below to get registered for your free seat at P3, the Journey Series. And let's get started, one story at a time. I'll see you inside. Click the link.
Before you get it, baby, show me your soul. And honey, I'll show you mine. I'll show you mine. Boy, I'm standing right here holding up a sign. don't see. What's yours for the taking tonight?
Good morning, good morning, good morning to you. Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's installment of Bathrobe Moments. I'm Dr. Lauren. So happy to be here with you. It's Hump Day, and we're making our way through this week. How are things shaping up in your neck of the woods? I'd like to know. Drop it in the comments. Whether you're here through one of the, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, one of those where you can be interactive, or where most of you are sitting at home watching through your Roku, your Amazon Fire, whatever it is, you're on your big screen TV. We feel you. We know you're here. Thank you for joining us every day, Monday through Friday. Today, we have another great show for you. And what a story. My husband, Dr. Brian, and he's a psychotherapist. So is today's guest. She's retired from that. And she became that after being a social worker, just like my husband. And when people ask him, what do you do? He never says, oh, I'm a PhD. I'm the male Dr. Ruth. He is not. He doesn't say that. He always goes to, I'm a social worker. And I was like, before I became Dr. Lauren, I was like, why don't you say Dr. Brian? Because I'm a social worker at heart. Social workers are great people. I'll tell you this. We are recruiting schools right now for the Power of We Symposium because we're at 750 kids, right? And when I go to the schools and I start dipping around inside their website, trying to ascertain, all the things I need to know to qualify them before I reach out. When I look on their faculty list, I don't care how many deans of students or assistant principals or principals are there. When I see school social worker, that's the first person I reach out to. And there's a reason for that. Social workers, they have a calling. I believe social workers should get paid what doctors and lawyers get paid. Anybody agree with that? I know you do. Put it in the comments. Yes. Maybe one day, right? We can pray for that. We can hope for that. So anyway, I don't have any announcements. I'm just really glad to be here. We are almost through. Let me just tell you guys, starting the first, I'm on the road speaking 6 times in May, every weekend, and then 2 weeks during the week. So we're in Wisconsin, the 1st and the 2nd, a one-day turnaround trip to New York City. I'm excited about that. On the 10th, Monterey, California, for a mental health summit there, 2 days rather, the 15th through the 17th. Leave there on the 17th, head down to Los Angeles for the E360 event. I'll be there through the 20th. And then on the 26th, back here in Illinois at the Philchrist High School, graduation for the commencement speech. And then on the 28th, headed off to, believe it or not, Minot, North Dakota. I don't even want to say it. I'm trying to be a ventriloquist. When I was in the Air Force, if you heard about anything, if they said the word, the city Minot, everybody ran, because that was weird. That was like saying you were getting sent to Siberia. Minot, you didn't want to go there. Snow up to here. But anyway, won't be any snow when I go because it's too late in the year. So anyway, who do we have here today? My husband binges when I go to bed at 8 a.m. p.m. I'm getting out of bed at 4 a.m., but I go to bed at 8 p.m. I can hear him downstairs binging on the Little House on the Prairie series. Now, why am I bringing that up? Because on there, if you remember, those of us, we all read the books, a lot of us, we watched the show, a lot of us. Mary, the oldest child on there, went blind, met her husband, Adam, at the school for the blind that they opened up in Walnut Grove. And that was a real heartwarming part. Well, all of it was, but that was a really touching part of the entire storyline of the Little House on the Prairie. But today's guest actually lived it as one of the children of 2 parents who went blind. So Mary Pieroni, I believe I'm saying it right, Harper, she's happily retired from being a psychotherapist. She's also the author, which is why we're here today, of The Sound of Her Voice, My Blind Parents' Story. Now, she's a native of Muncie, Indiana, and she's a graduate of the University of Virginia, where she also earned her master's in social work, but this time from the University of Houston. So currently, Mary lives in Colorado Springs, where she rings. Look. I know a little something about that. I never was in handbell choir, but if I'd have been a little more confident at the time, I probably would have tried out for it because they wore those nice little white gloves and right. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. If she felt like she was a geek, because that's one of the reasons I didn't do it. You want to do what? Right. I still got my bell in all those years late, 50 years late. So anyway, she lives in Colorado Springs. She finds new homes for old stuff. So what is she? A garage sailor? We're going to find out. And she often suffers from feline paralysis syndrome. Her blind cat, Lily, loves to cuddle when she's not creating mischief. Wow. Mary has 2 adult children, and she says that she loves being a grandma. Okay. So that is what we're, anything else about Mary, you're going to have to ask her yourself, because here she comes down the hall. I can hear her. You guys put your hearts on the screen. It's our way of virtually saying welcome as we welcome today's guest, Mary Harper. Mary Harper, Mary Harper, Mary Harper. Oh, wait, that was Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman, Mary Harper. How are you? Do you remember that?
I do.
No, that was a weird show. Yeah. How are you, Mary Harper?
Well, I have a bit of a cold, but I'm hopeful I'll make it through the hour.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, those colds. Well, I have a runny nose, so we're kind of in there together. Mine's from allergies, but it's good to see you. Welcome to the show. I read your bio, but there's always things that people leave out. They're trying to be polite and not make it a novel. But I like to leave for about 60 seconds and allow the guest to fill in anything between the lines that I may have omitted or we didn't get to. And also just create your own vibe with the audience. So that's okay with you. I'll dip out for about 60 and I'll come back and we'll officially get started. Sound good?
Okay.
Okay, all you. Take it away.
Well, I'm not used to really talking about myself. I'm more used to talking about other people or listening. I was quite the listener, still am, but that's what I did for a living, was listen. And sometimes people just needed to talk and not be interrupted, because that's a rare thing these days. People love to give advice and tell you what to do and so forth. And I would just sometimes just listen. And then sometimes I would ask a question and they would say, oh, well, I hadn't thought about that. So that was the fun part of my job. While I was working, I had 2 children, and they're now all grown up. With one of them lives in Houston, the other's in Chicago area. And yeah, I just came back from Chicago. I think that's where I got my cold. Courtesy of my 1-year-old granddaughter. But,
yeah. Oh, those little germ buckets! I'm not kidding you.
But they're so cute.
Something. They're cute, but they always got a runny nose.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I know. We have a little nephew, Silas. He's like 7 now, but when he was at it, every single time they visit or we visit, there, come on with a cold.
Yep.
So I can imagine what that question is. You always ask people, so how does that make you feel? I'm married to a therapist, and I already know, hey, get out of my head. It took me a couple of years of marriage to realize what he was up to, but I got his number now. So anyway, well, that's exciting. Let's get to the book. First of all, tell us about this love story. Set it up for us.
That's what it is. It is a total love story.
It really is.
There's so many stories to tell about them, so I will try and keep it concise. But it was interesting because back in 1913, my mother was born in a small, on a farm near a very tiny town in central Indiana. So she was very isolated on the farm with her family. And when she was born, it was obvious that her eyes were enlarged, that there was something wrong with her eyes. And so the country doctor said, let me consult with the city doctor in Indianapolis and I'll get back with you, but I think she has glaucoma. And he came back a few weeks later and said, yes, she does have glaucoma. And my friend in Indianapolis said, do not take her all over the place looking for a cure. There is no cure. Concentrate on making her as happy as you can make her, and just forget about having a cure. Okay. Switch over to 1914, a few months later, when my dad is born in January, to parents of Italian descent. They were both Italian immigrants in Muncie, Indiana, which is only about 60 miles away from the farm. When my grandmother, my father's mother, saw his eyes, she, of course, freaked out. And being a very devout Catholic, immediately decided that there has to be a miracle. She took him to all these different doctors. And one of them, most of them would just say, well, here, try these eye drops. And my dad hated that because it hurt. They stung his eyes. One doctor in Indianapolis said, oh, I can fix him and I'll do surgery. So he did the surgery and botched it and took away what was left of my dad's sight, which was
no. Yeah. Now, how old was he when he had the surgery?
Was 4 when he completely lost everything.
Oh, and your mom?
Was 11. So she had a little bit more sight, but not much. So switching back to her, on the farm, she could see well enough to ride the horse and get into trouble and have some adventures with her 2 sisters. But it got gradually worse and worse. And it's interesting, as a side note, when I was doing research for the book, I realized kids who had any disability up until relatively recent times were pretty much excluded from school. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So when my mom, who really wanted to learn to read, went to this little schoolhouse, oh, we don't know what to do with you. You're too young. I mean, you're blind. You can't see. So they stuck her in the back of the room, and she couldn't see anything on the board. So it's like, really? And that was almost a wasted year for her. And then her eyesight kept getting worse and worse, but she did have one really good teacher. I think it was her 2nd grade teacher, who helped her and put her in the front row and taught her how to read. And she was not stupid. People think blind people are stupid. Far from it.
Yeah.
Contrasting it back to Muncie, Indiana, and my dad is his older brother, Charles, is a pivotal figure in his life, because Charles took him under his wing and they did all kinds of stuff, mischief together. But when he was off to school, of course it was a parochial school, it was a Catholic school that my uncle went to. When it came time for my dad to go there, my grandmother took him there, and they said, oh, no, he's blind. We can't accept him as a student. We wouldn't know how to teach him. But they did offer to save his soul and let him come to religion class once a week.
Oh, that's awfully generous.
Wasn't that generous of him? Yeah. And then as I was doing even more research, I realized my dad had been on a committee to establish a school for disabled kids. And this was in the late 40s. And I'm thinking, oh my God, kids who were in wheelchairs because of polio or whatever reason, they were not allowed in school, at least in the Midwest. So I can't imagine. It wasn't until they established this school, and one of the kids happened to be blind. My dad would go down there and teach him Braille on his lunch hour, which I thought was really nice. But so things have definitely changed. But thank God for the Indianapolis School for the Blind. That was in, of course, in the capital city of Indiana, where my parents met. So my dad was there from 1st grade on, and my mom finally arrived in 3rd grade because by then her eyesight was so bad. She had headaches every single day. The kids were making fun of her. It was just, excuse me, really rough time.
Take a drink. So let me ask while you're taking that drink. So I'm assuming you found some of this out during your research, but what was the breakdown pretty much during this era? Glaucoma, where did it fall on the list? Was it the number 1 reason kids were losing their sight? And then there's a plethora of other ways. We just born blind, or
they were both born. They were both born with glaucoma.
Glaucoma. So what's the status today? Do people still go blind from glaucoma?
No, there's treatments today. There's no cure, but there's treatments. So if they'd been born now, they would have had a much better chance of saving their sight. But back then,
so people today can live a full life and still maybe have glasses or whatnot, but they can still see.
Right.
Well, that's wonderful. That's good to know. So, and it's thanks to people like your parents and the people with the school, Indianapolis School for the Blind, that helped us understand better.
Right.
What year was it when, do you know, just from your research, then we'll get back to the story, when it kind of shifted? You know what I mean? When it got better for people
for
with
kids? It was in the, what, 70s and 80s when they
so
started doing
relatively
mainstream.
recent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So your parents end up at the school now. Dormitories, kids live
Yes.
there, or did
They
families have
lived
to
there.
move there? Okay.
They did. And you think about it, my dad was only like 8 years old, and he did go home on weekends, but it was so hard for him to turn around and go back on that Monday morning. They took a interurban, it's like a trolley kind of thing from Indianapolis up to Muncie. And that was how people got around back then. It was pretty cool. And it got so much expensive and time
I was going to
consuming.
say, how did they pay for it? How did people pay for this?
Right. Well, the school itself was free, but the other expenses they had to pay for themselves. And my dad's father was an owner of a confectionery shop where they made their own ice cream and candy, among other things. They sold all that. Yeah. So, sorry.
No worries.
They paid for it, and they worked really, really hard, long hours, 12-hour days down at the store. When my parents got there to the school, they were told, okay, here's your governess. They were not mother figures. They were strictly custodial. They said, you are not, I'm not going to give you a bath. You have to take your own bath. You're responsible for your own care. Because I think a lot of blind kids, parents would spoil them and brush their teeth for them and wash them.
Things they could do themselves.
Yeah, they could do it themselves.
Right.
Yeah, so they were, and interestingly enough, back then, absolutely, the sexes did not mingle. The boys and the girls had separate dorms. They had separate dining rooms. They had, when they're in the room, classroom, the boys on one side, girls on the other. And they were not supposed to talk to each other.
They couldn't even talk? What year was this?
This would have been in the 20s.
In the 20s, okay.
Yep.
Okay, so they really weren't warring yet.
Remember, this was around the time when eugenics was very in and popular. And eugenics being the study of how to get a master race, how to get rid of what you do with disabled people. They're not contributing to society. So let's, wean them out of
exactly. Yeah.
So
put baby in the corner.
You don't want blind people to get married. So they want to remove every temptation. Well, so back in the 4th grade, that was when my mom got moved up to the class, and she was seated right across the aisle from my future father. And one day she had to recite a poem. It was just 4 lines, but she was terrified, and she stood up and recited it. And my dad listened to every word she said, memorized the words and her voice, and years and years and decades later, still remembered that poem. I'm like, wow, Dad, how do you remember that poem? But it was the sound of her voice, which is why I named the book. The sound of her voice was so important to him. That's what he fell in love with back in 4th grade. So there's your beginning of the love story. The school did not make it easy for them to communicate. It wasn't until they were in 6th, 7th, 8th grade that they had a little bit of opportunity to work at what they call the map table, where they had to feel the outline of each state and then put it down in the puzzle the right way. And my dad loved geography. He knew where everything was. He knew longitudes and latitudes of pretty much all major cities in the world.
I'm picturing, real quick, the map puzzle that was wooden.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you take the state out, and so he had to feel
it, right? Feel the outline of it. And then most exciting to him was he took her hand, he he could tell where she was. He felt for her hand and put her hand on the state, I think it was Florida, and showed her around the edges of it. And whoo, that made him so excited because he got to touch her, which that was his excuse in the, pursuit of education.
Right. And he was how old then?
He was 2 years older than what normal kids would be in like 6th or 7th grade. So he would have been 12 or 13. Because when they graduated from high school, they were 20.
Okay.
So they were a little bit slower.
Yeah, because it took more time, of course.
Right. Now in high school, they got to go to 3 different dances a year. That was, like Halloween and Christmas and spring and so forth.
Yes,
But,
yes.
they were very watched. They were chaperoned big time. But that was so exciting for my dad to finally be able to actually talk with my mother. They figured out ways of communicating, and I put that in the book about using their laundry they sent their laundry home to get it done. So they would put notes in the laundry, and then the mothers would mail it to them at the school. So Dad came up.
So the mothers knew what was going on.
Yes, they did, and they were okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go to the part about how now at what age did they actually start? That felt weird. I was going to say seeing each other.
Yeah. They use those words all the time.
Right. I know. See, that's us though. That's our weirdness.
So
yeah.
They weren't really free until after they graduated.
Oh,
and they
after.
were free of the school and all those restrictions.
That school was not playing around, were they?
No, not at all. It was like, you don't mess around with these kids.
Okay. None of that on our watch. Okay.
Right.
So they graduate. And what about college? Was college available at the time for kids who could not see?
Well, they were very, very fortunate. They were the only 2 in their class to go on to college.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That they went to school in Muncie, which is back then was called Ball State Teachers College, and now it's Ball State University.
Ball State University.
Home of David Letterman, if some of you may know that.
Yeah.
So they would go to classes together, and my mom said, all I wanted was just an education. So she would take classes that interested her. But my dad, he was really driven. Back then, all you needed was 3 years of undergrad to go to law school. His older brother went to law school, and he decided, well, maybe he could go to law school. And the reason why he was so driven is that he really wanted to marry my mother, but couldn't because she said, well, you have to prove to me that you can support me. I don't want to be dependent on anybody else or parents or whatever. So you have to be able to support me. Well, think about it. What jobs were available back in the 30s and 40s for a blind man? At the school, they were taught how to make brooms. Woohoo! You could go out, make brooms, and sell brooms for a nickel.
Yes.
They were taught how to cane chairs. You're not going to make a living doing that. Dad was really musical, but he always complained that he couldn't play well enough to suit himself. And then he said, anyway, what would I do with music? Play a piano in a bar? I'm not going to make money doing that. So when his older brother decided to go to law school, he said, well, yeah, I could be a lawyer, because he knew that would be the only way he could afford to marry my mother. So he goes off to Notre Dame Law School and becomes the first blind graduate of Notre Dame Law School.
He was the first blind graduate of Notre Dame?
Yes.
Wonder how many there's been since.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty spectacular.
And you think about it, that was before there were computers or any tape recorders or records that he could listen to. So all the textbooks, those really thick law textbooks, he had to listen to a reader. The state of Indiana paid for the reader to come and read to him. He had to take notes in Braille, and he had a Braille typewriter, so he would type as quick as he could. He had him listen and memorize all that stuff, which no way I could ever do that.
Wow. So and I imagine exams and things had to be extra difficult.
Yes. He did a lot of those on a print typewriter. He knew how to type on print. And so did my mom. So they could, write their papers that way or take a test that way. But yeah, it wasn't easy. None of that was easy. So he had a phenomenal mind and memory to be able to remember all that law school stuff and the pressure of, if he failed, what would happen to them? He would go home in disgrace to his parents. There would be nothing for him to do. There's nothing for my mother to do on the farm. It was interesting because both parents were telling them, mostly my mother's, but both were saying, you can't do this, you can't do that. My mom had cooking classes at the School for the Blind, but her mother wouldn't let her in the kitchen. Oh no, you might get hurt. No.
You're not burning this house down. Right. Real quick before we get too far from that intersection, I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
Did your dad ever talk about the pressure of being the first Notre Dame law student that was unsighted? I mean, because he's like a pioneer. They didn't know how to deal with it. So he had to wait for them to put things in place, probably every time he came up to a challenge. And then they'd go, oh, we hadn't thought of that. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
How long did it take him to finish law school?
The usual 3 years.
The usual 3. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So he really opened the way.
Yes.
That's incredible.
You know, it's interesting too, because I was looking through the old Notre Dame yearbook, and everybody else's pictures were straight on, and my dad was in profile because my dad had one very large eye and one eye that was just nothing there. That was from his childhood, and so it covered up an empty spot on his left eye, and they thought that was pretty ugly, I guess, so they made him pose this way. And that's how he was in the yearbook. But
wow, that's sensitivity training.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
What about? I mean, because today we have the Disabilities Act and things like that make sure that people with disabilities are treated fairly. But when you're the first of something, wow, it's just amazing. Okay, so what kind of law did he decide on?
He did a lot of, back then, anything to do with the trucking industry needed to go through the FCC, Federal
Communications Commission.
I don't remember.
Yeah, that's what FCC is.
Yeah, it had to do with regulating trucking. So he did a lot of that, but then he also did a lot of wills and adoptions and stuff. When I published the book.
So private practice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He worked for himself. His law firm grew. When he first started out, he was working with his brother and was very worried about, well, who would hire a blind lawyer? And the newspaper decided they would publish an article about, young man sets up a law office. And then the phone started ringing. And then his older brother decided he wanted to bring in more business. So he ran for judge of city court, which was a part-time position, and got a lot of publicity that way. And then he said after that, 4 years, he said, I don't want to run again. So my dad decided he would run. And at least he would get some steady income and not be so dependent on, when you're a lawyer, you never know what your income is going to be.
Right. And a blind lawyer at that.
Yeah. So he ran for city court judge and won. And oh my goodness, anything he said or did was in the newspaper. So when I was doing my research, newspapers.com is one of my favorite websites. And he's been mentioned over 4,000 times.
Wow.
A lot of those were Mario Peroni sends man off to jail for a hit and run accident or something, or he was fined $10 for this or that. So any kind of decision my dad had that was put in the newspaper. They didn't have much news, I guess, at that time in Muncie. But
anything was exciting, pretty much. What about this? Did he ever talk about the challenges of taking the actual bar exam?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had a feeling there'd be something with that. Tell us about that experience.
I put that in detail in the book, but briefly, he brought his print typewriter, all his equipment, and he was met at the hotel where they were giving the test. Oh, hello, Mr. Peroni. You won't be needing all that. We decided we'd do an oral exam.
Oh.
he was like, oh, because he was not prepared at all for an oral exam. He said,
Right. No heads up.
one thing to show your ignorance on paper. It's another to sit with three people looking at you, asking you questions and judging you while you're sitting there. And he couldn't see them.
Because, and then also that if, when you're thinking on paper, nobody hears you thinking. You know, but if you're three people staring at you, a 10-second thought process could feel like an hour.
Right. And remember, if he failed, he wasn't going to get married to my mother. His whole life would be nothing, and all that work at Notre Dame. So yes.
And I wonder back then, could you take the bar over and over and over like you can now?
I don't know.
That's a good question too.
Yeah, that is, but he didn't need to take it again.
He passed on the first round.
Yeah.
Wow. So did he ever talk about what he immediately thought when he was finished? Oh my God, I totally blew it. No way am I going to be a lawyer. Or did he feel pretty good about it? He said, you know what? I killed it.
Yeah.
So he knew he had done well?
He wasn't sure. He really didn't know. Afterwards, they went down to the bar. He was down in the bar with other people there and other people who were taking the test.
Sure.
And then they started talking about, well, this is the answer that I gave. And he realized, oh, that's the same answer I gave. And then the examiners came into the bar and they asked him to come with him to another room. And my dad was like, holy shit. You know,
right.
Oh my God, I've failed. Oh my God. They sit him down and they said, we thought you'd like to know some of the answers to these questions. So I start telling him some of the answers and he realizes, oh, that's what I said. I got it right. So he was pretty sure he was, I mean, that's highly unusual for examiners to do that. But
yeah.
I guess they like my dad and
they've never seen anything like it. They're making history.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So he comes out, he graduates and he's now a bona fide lawyer.
Yep.
Let's talk about when did the one knee? Did he go down on one knee soon thereafter?
That I don't think so.
No.
He had to work for a year so he could prove that he could earn money. So at the end of that year, they did get married in a small ceremony at 8 a.m. I'm like, Mom, why would you get married at 8 a.m? Well, then we had a wedding breakfast, and guess where they went on their honeymoon? They took the train to Chicago by themselves.
Yay.
Yeah. And stayed at, my dad called it the Grand Old Stevens Hotel. And by that time, my dad had been to Chicago several times. He knew all the main streets of Chicago. He knew where he was going. And they had a wonderful time.
And they're both completely blind now.
Yeah.
They're both completely. So your mom, she finished college.
Yes? No, she dropped out after 2 years.
She dropped out after 2 years. She's waiting on him now.
Exactly.
And okay, so they get married. How soon after that did the family start? And how many siblings do you have?
Okay, I have I'm the youngest of four, and the oldest was born in 1943. That would have been my sister Anne, which of course caused a whole lot of controversy. First of all, blind people aren't supposed to get married. How in the world can they support each other? How can she do this? How can she do that? That first year they were married, unfortunately, they had to live with my grandparents because my dad's parents, because my dad didn't earn quite enough for an apartment. So he was saving money. But meanwhile, my grandmother said, oh, no, Jane, no. You can't stay out of my kitchen. She's an Italian mom who loves to cook and did not want my mother in the kitchen. So then my mom says, well, I can do the laundry. Oh, no, you can't see. So how could you possibly do laundry? No. My mom really didn't have that much to do and was very frustrated. But eventually, when my dad earned enough money, a year later or so, they moved into an apartment on their own. And
I know she was happy.
She was ecstatic.
Yes.
She had Braille recipe books that she would read about how to cook. She got the stove marked with little notches, like on the knobs that you turn for low, medium, high kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She had my dad's father come in and make those little notches and made it so that she had these adaptions.
Wow.
She just figured out how to do it.
Wow. Now, she gets pregnant with your oldest sister.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of us, I don't have kids, but I have a lot. I got my gunkle shirt on. I'm a gunkle, you know, and we babysit and keep them and this and the other. And I'm telling you, they get to that age where if you blink your eye, where'd they go?
Right.
So let's talk about that. How did they navigate a pregnancy, a newborn, and all that comes with it?
You know,
How?
I just took it for granted when I was growing up. And then when my sister being 10 years older than I was, she was married first, had 2 kids. So I would see my mom changing her grandchild's diapers. And I'm like, well, Mom, back then you didn't have paper diapers. She said, oh no, we had cloth diapers.
With those big old pins.
Yes. And that's what she was worried about. And she said, I never, ever wanted to poke my baby. I said, how did you do that, Mom? She said, well, I stuck my 2 fingers in between the baby and the diaper.
Yeah.
And
now I bet she got stuck quite a bit.
she did.
Never once the baby.
That's correct.
So what about like, oh my goodness. You know how you put the baby down on the blankie and they get to like lay there and you can tell if they flip over and stuff, but when you cannot see. Now, for those of you who have just joined us, Mary Harper, the author of an incredible book chronicling the story, the love story of her parents who were both blind, the sound of her voice, my blind parents' story. And we're at the point where they have now gotten married, finally, after jumping through a world of hoops, and are on their own and starting a family, like I said, and having a baby, and neither one of you can see. Did they ever tell you about that? How it was? And then a baby starts growing and can see and is like playing with you or holding up things or making faces, and they don't get to see any of that.
Right. My parents never saw any of us kids. They never saw each other, for that matter. When you think about it.
Was it true? Is it true they can tell by feeling?
Yeah.
So that's how they.
Oh, my mom would touch my hair and say, oh, your hair's getting long. About time for us to get it cut. Or I get into high school back in the 60s. Mini skirts were the rage. She'd say, come, let me see you. She'd be sitting at the breakfast table and I'd be heading off to school. Let me see what you've got on, Mary. Okay. So I'd go up to her and she would feel the top and she said, oh, I know this blouse. This blouse is your red sweater. And I'd say, yeah. And then she would reach all the way down on my skirt and she'd say, Mary, that hem is way too short. How can you wear that? It's way above your knee. Looky here. And like, yeah, Mom, but that's the style. Everybody wears them short. Well, your legs are going to get cold. I said, well, I grew up in Muncie. So yes, it was cold in the winters.
Yeah.
But I didn't care. I mean, you're in high school. That's what you do.
Hey, Mary, what year were you born?
53.
53. Okay. Television's on the way in. Television's on the way in.
Yep.
So, and you've got older siblings, right? You're the baby.
Yep.
So, TV.
We had one TV, and I know that if my mom back then they used playpens a lot for when you were real little.
Yeah.
And so I would be in my playpen, and then I wanted to be with my siblings, so I would cry, and then my older sister would get up and get me out and sit me down, and
so that helped.
Yeah.
As they had other children, the older siblings who were, and all of you sighted, no problems, no glaucoma.
Problems.
Were your parents concerned? Did they ever say that they were worried that you all would be born with the ailment that they both suffered from, glaucoma, and therefore lose your sight?
Yes. They went to a doctor before my mom got pregnant, and they asked what are the odds that one of our kids or any of our kids would have glaucoma. And the doctor said, I think you have recessive genes, not to worry about it. And voila, none of us had a problem.
None of you had it. So let's talk from the viewpoint of the child of the 2 parents. And you can speak for your other siblings as well, because I'm sure you spoke with all of them and you grew up with all of them. And but when people sit with their mouths hanging open, wondering how you all did it, but it's all you knew.
Exactly.
It was natural.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So what about when you went for a sleepover or you had a friend that came over to your house for dinner? Did you like watch them go like this as they watched all this go on, and you guys moved like it was nothing?
Yeah.
But to them, they were like, oh, you should see how it's like a dance or something. How it must have been like a well-oiled machine.
My best friend told me many years later, she said, Mary, I thought you were lying to me when you said that your mother was blind. She didn't look blind at all. She was moving around the house and doing everything she needed to do. And I'm like, and she said, I thought you were lying to me. I'm like, really? No, that was my mom, and she is blind. Now, my mother didn't look blind. She had the surgery where they removed her eyes, and she had artificial glass eyes. So
oh, wow. They removed her eyes?
Yeah, because one of them was bigger, and she didn't want to look abnormal. She wanted to look normal. So at first glance, you couldn't tell that she was blind. So a lot of times we'd be in a restaurant, Mom and I, and the waitress would come with 2 menus. And I would just say, oh, we only need one. And the lady would look a little confused. And I said, Mom doesn't need one. And then I would read the menu to her. But
how'd you get
so
to
a lot of people didn't realize that she was blind.
So let me ask you this. How long, do you remember when you guys got your first car, or did you ever get
Oh, yeah.
Because they wouldn't have had a car. How did you guys get around as a family before the oldest sibling was able to drive?
Walk, bus. We took the bus. We lived on a bus line, so we'd go down to the corner and have to wait for the bus.
So would people say, oh, there goes the blind family?
I hated that.
I know, I just knew it. They would clump everybody in there, didn't they?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
And, my dad had a seeing eye dog, and everywhere he went, unless he didn't need the dog, but almost always he took the dog with him. And so it was, I felt like, oh, we're a spectacle. What are you staring at? When I first started writing, I didn't know how to tell this story. It was such a huge story. So I thought, okay, I'll just write down my memories. And I titled that one, Stop Staring, because I just hated people staring.
Right.
Take
a picture, it lasts longer.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that, Mary? As far as, and I say that because today even there are people who deal with that. I've done a speech on it called The Look. When you give people the look, it can be a very horrible thing if you're not aware of it, and they lock it in.
Yeah.
So talk about, how did you learn to educate people on the situation of your family? So, and how receptive were they to understanding, or was it just not worth your time and trouble?
It depends. Most people knew my family because we were the subject of a lot of newspaper articles, and even a national magazine came and interviewed my parents. My dad actually ran for mayor before I was born. And he made the mistake of not telling my mother that he had agreed to run for mayor until after he was drafted. Back then, they had, I don't know, consensus drafting or whatever.
Okay.
And so he comes home and says, oh, I'm running for mayor. And she was so upset. She did not want to be a mayor's wife. That's really, really hard to be a mayor's wife because you're in the public view all the time.
All the time. Under scrutiny, sure.
Right.
Sure.
So she was really happy when he lost. Won the primary.
Oh, you lost? Oh,
that's too bad.
Yeah. Let me ask you this one. What about simple things that a lot of us take for granted? For instance, family vacations.
None.
Ever?
Well, I can remember one time we went, when I must have been at least 7 because my sister would have been 17 and driving. And we rented a little cottage up on a lake in northern Indiana. And unfortunately, I got sick for the week. So I think I had the mumps or something. I was stuck in a dark room for days and I didn't get to really play. But, when I went to elementary school and I realized people coming back in September and talking about their vacations, I'm like, oh,
what's that?
They get to go somewhere. They have station wagons and places to go. And we didn't have any of that.
Woodies and those. Remember those? Remember those? Yes. I used to be jealous too.
Yeah.
Families that went on those because I was in foster care, so I didn't get any of that either.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about this piece of the puzzle, if we could. What about another? I keep going to the things that we take for granted because it's a way of really celebrating through gratitude. when you realize how you have what so many others don't, and you just didn't realize it. So I'm getting at little simple things like photographs. You know, like when you take pictures and stuff and you tell everybody, the whole family's there, mom, dad, everybody, like smile. And then like you guys were around when Polaroids came out, comes right out of the camera, you're waving it around. And then, oh, let me see.
Yeah.
How did you share the fun? What about like Christmas morning when their parents would unwrap things? How did they know what they had?
Oh, they feel it. And they would, they'd
And you
unwrap
tell
like
them
your
what
mom would
color
unwrap
it
it.
is and what the design is. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They just
so
feel
when
it.
you were shopping for them, did that play into your choices? Like how much? I mean, I'm just trying to me, it just seems like everything had extra steps to it.
It did for them, for sure. They had to think twice and be so aware of everything. When my dad was out walking with the dog, he had to be extremely aware of where everything was. He couldn't just be walking along daydreaming. He had to know right where he was, or he could get lost.
Oh, I got one. What about things like where you put stuff back in the refrigerator or in a cupboard?
In the same place.
So everybody was
Yeah.
put this in the same spot so that they know.
Oh, my mom could every once in a while she would ask me, she said, "Is this a can of peas?" And she said she'd shake it and she'd hear it. And I'd say, yeah. And she said, "Good, because I have this can and I think it's corn." I said, "Yeah, Mom, you're right."
How could she tell?
Because there's a difference. Close your eyes sometime and shake something. You'll
The
hear
sound,
it.
you're saying, not the weight, not identifiers on the particular manufacturing of the can, but the sound of
the sound.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about grocery shopping? What was that like?
When I was growing up, an uncle would take us down to the store. Either that or we would walk if we didn't need too much, but hated walking. But my uncle would take us and I would walk with my mom. She always, I would push the cart. She always took my left arm. She taught us from a very early age how to walk with a blind parent. So, I mean, like when we were 4 and 5 years old, we were walking down the street and knowing to stop and look both ways at a curb. And then I got so that I learned, oh, I need to tell her this is a high curb, or, oh, Mom, there's water down here. You got to take a big step so you don't step in the water.
Yeah.
And that became just second nature. And walking around any tree limbs that were hanging too low, that kind of thing.
How many times over the years, and you can be honest, but I bet you your parents, that's for some reason I can hear your dad saying this, sense of humor wise. So what I mean is grabbing your mom's hand and saying, "Come with me," and then turning around and saying something to the effect of the blind leading the blind.
Oh,
that terminology. Did you see? I knew it. So yes.
I don't think they ever said that, but my mom would often walk with my dad, and he had his seeing eye dog, and she would be on the other side. I think the seeing eye dog had to be on the right side, and then she grabbed his left arm, and off they would go, just the two of them. That's how they went to Chicago.
Okay. Another question. We were just talking about this the other day because my husband was saying we're talking about the what do you call those pets that people have? They can take them on planes and stuff.
Oh, support plane.
Support animal.
Yeah.
Right. And he was like, "Honey, they're great, but some people take advantage," because we were like, "What is that person doing with that big old dog in here?" You know, that is not a support. So let me ask you this. How do you feel today when you grew up with one of the original support dogs? Because before there were all these other support dogs, there were seeing eye dogs.
Yes.
Right. And first of all, how many did your dad go through in his lifetime? How many? 8?
Mm-hmm. He was in his late 80s when his last dog died.
Wow. And did they have to pay for those, or did they get them free? How do you know it's a good fit?
Yeah. Well, so I'm pretty sure they got him free. I don't remember that. I mean, as a kid, I didn't care. Dad was gone for a few weeks, and then he came back with a new dog.
So was the seeing eye dog like a family pet, though?
No, never.
Oh,
no. We were not allowed. We didn't care. We were more cat people.
Okay.
But the dog itself, was my dad's dog. He took care of everything, feeding and taking him out on walks and whatever. So we had really not much to do with the dog. The dog was there, but he wasn't a pet.
Oh, interesting. I see. I just love these questions because it's so many things I'm getting wrong that I would have assumed, you know. So let's go back to, I want to give everybody the opportunity. Man, this hour flew by. Mary, there is your website, but here is the Amazon link, you guys. And I'm going to drop all of Mary's connectors. I even have her her email because she likes emails. I'm going to put all of these inside of your comment section immediately following the conclusion of today's program, which is just in a now, actually. So Mary, what would you say this experience of writing this book about this beautiful love story, The Sound of Her Voice, My Blind Parents' Story, what would you say has been the most gratifying thing about it all for you?
You know, just meeting with people and answering their questions. And I like to teach people how to approach blind people too. People don't know. And one of the things I say, if there's somebody that you know that has any kind of disability, call them up. Say, would you like to get out? Would you like to go for a ride? My mother loved, and parents love to go. When my sister finally got her driver's license, we'd go on Sunday afternoon car rides just to drive around and have the windows open and smell the fresh country air.
Exactly. Just the freedoms that so many.
Yes. Freedom.
Yes, there it is. I just love it. Any ideas on, do you think you'll do another book, or you're going to hang your quill up, or what's going on there?
Excuse me. Who knows? Maybe.
Maybe. And this book came out in 2022, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so listen, everybody, get over and check it out. Scrolling along the bottom is where you can grab the book, and maryharper.com is up top. All things Mary Harper. Get over and check her out. What a riveting story, man. And the book is not that expensive. I think it's like $14 for the paperback or something. I think we looked it up. I have it right here.
I don't know what it is now.
$16.99 for the paperback. Is it on Audible by chance, Mary?
I need to get it on Audible. It's on Kindle, but I have not loaded it up yet.
You know what? I got somebody for you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. One of my coaching clients is an audio book coach. And he'll get it on all three of the Apple, Amazon, and Audible in 6 weeks. Yeah, with your voice, using your voice. I'm gonna put you in touch with him, Robert A. Lane. He's a phenomenal guy.
Nice.
Yeah, because that's how I get all mine. Driving around listening. Yeah. Nice. Mary, what a wonderful, wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today. Love it, and you're welcome back anytime you want to come back and give us an update. Okay.
Thank you.
And listen, for you guys out there, thank you so much for meeting with us here today. I couldn't do it without you, nor would I want to. Now, remember, get out there today, in this day, and find just a little piece of your highest self. Use it to ease some form of suffering in the world, just like Mary Harper has done here today by pouring into us. Now, listen, get out of here. Have the best day ever. Remember, in closing, I say it every day, and I mean it. I love you. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless you. I'll meet you on the front porch at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Have the best day ever. Bye, everybody. Great job, Mary. Great job. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Bye, you guys.